Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Oh, fun stuff we got here. Now, this is, I could talk about this all day. This
is really cute. This was brought to our attention by one of our lovely family members. And then I was reading that information, and Mike come over and he pulled this up. This is like on the headlines, right? It's everywhere.
Yeah, this is from RT. And the headline says, Reptiloids at the helm of the UN? Question mark. Twitter split after CGI dinosaur lectures humans on downside of extinction. It's absolutely adorable. And, think about it. This video was put out by the UN. I think it says it all right there. I think that's all you need to know, kind of. A CGI dinosaur talking with the voice of fan favorite actor Jack Black took center stage at the UN's General Assembly chamber. Tell politicians to stop subsidizing fossil fuels and do more to tackle climate change. The short clip was released by the UN's Development Program as the centerpiece of its Don't Choose Extinction public awareness campaign. The polar bear-sized reptilian was shown startling a UN meeting with its impressive appearance and tough love lecture on how dying out as a species is really a bad outcome. It's funny at first, and then it kind of makes you you feel like you're a little kid getting lectured again. So let's take a peek.
You okay? You need a minute? Cool. Okay. Listen up, people. I know a thing or two about extinction. And let me tell you, and you'd kind of think this would be obvious, going extinct is a bad thing. And driving yourselves extinct? In 70 million years, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. At least we had an asteroid. What's your excuse? You're headed for a climate disaster, and yet every year governments spend hundreds of billions of public funds on fossil fuel subsidies. Imagine if we had spent hundreds of billions per year subsidizing giant meteors. That's what you're doing right now. Think of all the other things you could do with that money. Around the world, people are living in poverty. Don't you think helping them would make more sense than, I don't know, paying for the demise of your entire species? Let me be real for a second. You've got a huge opportunity right now. As you rebuild your economies and bounce back from this pandemic, this is humanity's big chance. So here's my wild idea. Don't choose extinction. Save your species before it's too late. It's time for you humans to stop making excuses and start making changes. Thank you.
Okay. Thoughts. I mean, I have a few. Let me let Cindy speak first.
Well, I don't know. Every time I watch it, I get a little more like dumbfounded and thinking, the whole system is set up with this tug of war, this give and take. It's like they say a lot of things, but then nothing ever happens. I mean, of course, it would be nice if the people who hoarded everything would spread the resources out across the globe and heal the planet. That would be wonderful. But we all know it'll never happen. It's just as long as these buildings are open and there's beings walking in and out of them, it's never going to happen. So
as far as that, there's so much coming through right now from the guides that to share. For one of the obvious things is here you have somebody that scares people as far as their appearance, walking in the halls of the UN, coming down, taking the mic. You see the Earth as this, blue planet. As the shot fades off, like ships are almost like you're watching a ship now taking off from the Earth after it's come to the Earth. I think for one, they're kind of getting us used to the fact that we're at some point in time going to see beings that are not human, literally speaking, at the UN. And they're going to introduce them, and they want you to get used to the idea of human reptilians. That's just part of it. There's so much more to this. There's layer upon layer upon layer to this. Again, it's kind of like a soft disclosure, and they're also getting us ready to be shocked, because it is going to be shocking when people see species that are not human but are able to communicate with us and are obviously highly intelligent, because this world has been cut off from that knowledge. And even though we have sci-fi movies and books and stories and all these legends and myths and rumors and all that, to actually see it firsthand is going to be shocking. I think, for myself, one of the things when I was watching his feet go, I was thinking, oh, he's leaving footprints just like ones we saw in the desert.
mm-hmm.
Just like ones we saw in the desert. Then when I looked at his hands, I thought, okay, the 3 fingers there, well, I've seen 3-finger hands alive and in person up close. December 2017, when I woke up and saw the gray that was trying to sabotage me, this 8 to 9 foot tall gray, extraterrestrial, interdimensional, that was sabotaging my energy body, and on purpose. And when I woke up and looked at it, it looked away, and it basically went into a meditative state, and it was just like in Star Wars where they beam them up. It's exactly like that. The body went from looking solid to looking like an energy pattern, and then just fading away. But it took somewhere around, I'd say, a minute and a half for the whole thing to disappear. I wasn't terrified because I've had these experiences all my life, and Cindy has too. We've had more experiences than we can count with beings that are not human, and deceased humans too. It happens every single day. It happened twice to us last night. So to us, we have absolutely no doubts that there are extraterrestrials, there are interdimensionals. There are tons of people that are out of the body around us all the time. For us, it's not like it's a theory. We know, because we've experienced firsthand so many times, countless times. And this is getting the public ready, because they're going to roll out, as we've been saying, at some point. And I would expect it's going to be more after all the real mess that we're going to go through the next 3 years-ish. At some point, when they have their system in place, the system that they really want, that one world control, that's no longer covert, it's overt, because we've agreed to it, and they got to get us to agree to it. They got to get us to accept seeing something that may look very, very scary and reptilian to us, in a position of authority, coming in as a wise elder, so to speak. It's part of conditioning of society. And, this is part of the programming. So not really surprised in that sense. And of course, they're talking about extinction and the dinosaurs and the giant asteroid. And again, that's what we're told. Yeah, there's evidence of impacts all around the globe. In reality, Younger Dryas period too, we had a lot of impacts. Do we really know they were asteroids or comets? There's not agreement on whether they're asteroids or comets. What if it was some type of warfare? What if it was some type of warfare between species, other species with high technology? Would we know the difference? Again, you have people that say, look to the science. Yeah, but who funds the science? The UN, the CDC, the WHO, all these different, groups that are controlled by the controllers. So, and they could give us any science and any history they want. There are things that we do learn that they can't really hide over time. Now, when we look to everywhere across the globe, there are legends of reptilian humanoid beings everywhere. It's universal.
Right. And you can't get away from it either. Even though it's not taught in school, it very much saturates our books when you start looking around the world and looking into different types of literature. It's everywhere. There's no escaping it after that.
No, it isn't. So we have the Chitauri, the story of the reptilian god who reigned over Africa. For decades, the elders of some tribes in the world claim to have the keys to knowledge. From these different traditions, they speak of beings known as the Chitauri, reptilian beings that control humanity. That's a picture of Credo Mutwa, shaman, with the Zulu people. The word Chitauri means those who make the law. It's believed that these beings did many things to us when they arrived on Earth. According to the Zulu Sanasi Credo Mutwa, the Chitauri descended from huge ships and had the appearance of terrifying reptiles. So here we see the shaman described them as 3-meter tall creatures with different social classes. The upper class or royalty, those Chitauri have horns on their heads, have wings, and a huge tail. Wow, that sounds an awful lot like the typical depiction of Satan.
Or even some kind of a dragon.
Or a dragon. Think about it. It's one of the most frustrating things is trying to get people to understand. They'll say that there's Satan. Satan's everywhere. Satan's coming to get you. Satan's looking for his opportunity, as if it's a single person. And, well, who is it? Well, it's a fallen angel. It's Lucifer. And they equate Satan with Lucifer, with a fallen angel, a created being by God who is separate from his creation. And all that's a distortion. And it's all a complete misunderstanding. Yet, Satan may very well, Satan again just means adversary, look like that. Look like the typical depiction that we've seen. But recognize that it's not a singular being, it's a class of beings, it's a type of being. And again, it means the adversary. The adversary to who? To us, from our standpoint, right? It's the ones that keep humanity under control and under the thumb in a servant-like state, in a slave state. So, there's so many that are so fundamentalist, and they still look at the world through a fundamentalist mindset, which is akin, and I know this will get some ticked off, but it's true. You're still looking at it like the Easter Bunny. You're still looking at it like the Tooth Fairy. You're still looking at it like Santa Claus. You got to recognize that there's life everywhere. Life is the rule. This whole everything that's ever been created has been created for consciousness to have fun and explore and to learn and to grow. This is all a construct. Everything is a construct. And science is catching on that we're looking at a holographic universe. That's a projection. It's a projection. Yet, when we're in here, it's very, very real. And it has to be that way because it's all about, again, experiencing, learning, growing, exploring. That's the whole purpose to everything. So yes, life abounds everywhere. There's really nowhere that there's no life. It's the exact opposite of kind of what we've been brought up to believe. So you have this upper class royalty. Again, they're the ones that have several horns on their heads, have wings and a huge tail. Unlike the warrior or lower class that have large eyes, vertical pupils, rounded face, no horns, wings, or tails. African shamans preserve their entire history of the ancient culture of their tribes. Information has been tried to be destroyed on different occasions. This is why we have all the power center from which they operate go out and destroy all the shamanic cultures around the globe. That's why over 100 million Native Americans in both Americas have been wiped out, because they had this history. They knew the truth. What did they replace it with? They replace it with a totally different religious mindset, one that doesn't take into account a shamanistic point of view of things, and a very limited mindset that keeps you in a nice tight little box that they could control totally. And yet there's clues even in like the Abrahamic traditions, again, to what's really, really going on here. They don't want people in touch with Mother Earth, with the goddess energy, the divine feminine. That's why they only refer to Source as being our Father that's in heaven, because as long as we're disconnected from that which we're around and surrounded by and part of and in, then we're missing so much of everything, and it leaves us so malleable, pliable, controllable.
Right. And, when we say science is coming around to things, we kind of mean in the sense that what we're allowed to know, because that's controlled too. Like Mike was talking about the shamans and having all of their knowledge destroyed. A lot of it that they kept private, they kept to themselves. But a lot of it was destroyed, and that was the true knowledge. That was our true understanding and how to bring balance to ourselves and balance to the planet. They completely obliterated that. And then they came up with this story of their own, and they give us this book to say, okay, here's all the details you need, and don't you dare go outside of this book and look for anything that might also benefit your soul, or you're going to burn in hell forever. That's just horrible. But we have to look at it in a truthful way. That's what we have. Whether we like it or not, this is what we're dealt. So we have to see it. When we see things to be true, then we can kind of navigate the way that we need to for our own selves, for our own balance.
Exactly. Yeah, so we have to recognize the bigger picture, but we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater either. And we've talked about that many times, how yes, there was an actual person on who the Jesus is based. And his teachings are things that should be completely embraced. And it's one of the keys to bringing a heaven on earth. Just as there are these beings that we call the archangels, they're incredibly powerful beings, creative forces, the very forces of nature itself personified. So there are distortions that keep us from understanding how things really, really work. And that's exactly what they do. Again, they could give you 90% of the truth, but the 10% just gets you running down rabbit holes that lead to nowhere.
Yep.
So the African shamans preserve the entire history of their ancient culture of their tribes, information that has been tried to be destroyed on different occasions. These legends tell us situations very similar to what religion and the Bible dictate, but a different perspective. Credo Mutwa begins the account by describing the early days of the world. The world was only covered by a blanket of mist. That sounds very familiar as well. People could not see the sun except for a dim light. A steady drizzle fell continuously, and the light of the moon barely illuminated the night sky. There were great forests and jungles that covered the earth, and people lived in harmony with the world. Some legends say that humans did not have the ability to speak and only communicated through telepathy. Yes, the first beings on this planet were very curious looking beings, humanoid, but kind of amphibian humanoid. Mm-hmm. And they did communicate telepathically. So they were aquatic and land. They could go inland and on land and in the ocean and survive in both. And some of these beings are still there, is what we're getting as well. So that's really cool. And they were telepathic. And humanity has been telepathic at different times. Homo sapiens sapiens When you look to the Anunnaki legends as if it's an upgrade, it's not really an upgrade, not spiritually at all. It's a huge downgrade spiritually from what we were. When we looked at Denisovans, Neanderthals, Cro-Magnons, and others, many of these species were physically stronger and way more telepathic and way more in tune with the earth and everything around it. They had the instincts that the animals have. They had just so much more ability than the typical Homo sapien has, as far as what we would call extrasensory perception. So the Chitauri then appeared in great flying vessels that emitted a terrible noise, crossing fire in the sky. These beings told humans that they were the great gods of heaven, and that they would be in charge of giving them great gifts. These gifts included the loss of any mental capacity they possessed. They no longer had telepathy or the power to travel spiritually, to see the past and the future. They were replaced by the ability to speak. However, humans saw how this new ability divided them, as the Chitauri created languages to prevent them from being understood. And we have all these like statues and stuff that give us representations that we found globally that are very similar. Kings in slavery, in addition to the great disputes over the different languages, they also chose men who would rule the rest, punishing anyone who did not obey them. This caused feelings to appear that had never been expressed: insecurity, fear, anger. In this way, humans began to build villages, further separating themselves from the unity that characterized them. Little by little, the world began to divide into borders that were defended by fire and death. With this separation, greed was born. Each village wanted to be more powerful than the other, and this was only possible through wealth. Think about that. A world without borders is what we really, really want. Do we want that just simply in a higher police state? Hell no. Of course not. But again, they get us fearing the world coming together, but then they want to give us the world coming together under their open rule. This is, again, how things are twisted and hidden. We have to come together. And we have to eventually take down all borders, because originally when we were at peace, there were no borders. There was no division. We were one people. We were one tribe. And we can understand that. Yet it's through the division is how they control us. And then yet again, they want us to be one tribe, but one tribe under their control, full of nothing but basically zombified people that are nothing but slaves. This is their ultimate goal, and they're using technology to do it. Our technology is enslaving us more than you know. The clouds in the sky are full of things that you might evade by putting a facial covering on, perhaps not, more than likely not. But it doesn't matter if you keep yourself at a certain distance when what's being put in the sky above your head is penetrating every little inch, cubic centimeter of the air that we breathe. Think about that. So the Chitauri also forced humans to excavate the earth. Women searched for valuable minerals and metals. This is how gold, copper, and silver were discovered, and of these new materials never seen before. Think about the original Garden of Eden. Well, God puts man in the Garden of Eden to till the garden, to take care of the garden, to work the garden. Think about it. I mean, the story is right there. It's right there. And we've said before, the source of all creation is spirit. I think we could agree on that. It's the ultimate universal consciousness. So why would it smell burnt flesh offerings and think, oh, I'm hungry. I can't wait to get me some barbecue. Give me a rack of ribs, and give me a rack of libs. That was part of the history too there. Yes. That's another story. And a couple burgers and some wings, This doesn't make sense. The sound of God walking. Obviously, that's a 3D being, or a being on the same density as humans were at that time. And again, we have 1 foot in 3D, 1 foot's about to land in 4D. When we're in 4D, they will appear solid to us because these are 4D beings. So then it'll be as if, you're going to look at them, they're going to be as solid as, looking at your brother, sister, mother, father, son, boss, you name it. And that's why they're able to appear in the sky. It's all about density. As we change the densities, we are apparently solid, or others will apparently appear solid to us of the same density. So that's why, you wonder, where did the gods go? If they were actually here and now they're gone, where'd they go? Well, we just dropped even lower in density. Now, some beings, like, Laurel at the Galactic Federation in New Mexico, one time that I can remember, appeared solid in her ship up in a cloud right over our little cabin that we were in. And it takes effort for them to do that, but they can. And they're dropping all the way down from 5th density through 4th and appeared temporarily solid to us in 3rd. It can be done. It does take energy. And but when we get to that point where we're at the same level, like when we get to 5th, then they're going to be right there. And they're going to welcome us. That those that make it to 5th density, they will be welcomed. So, again, we see the similarity here with the Anunnaki legends, mining gold, copper, silver. These beings were also responsible for removing the blanket of mist that existed in the sky. Thus, humans saw the stars for the first time. Using the people's astonishment, the Chitauri said the following: "From now on, the people of Earth have to believe that God is in heaven, and they have to do things on this earth to please God who is in heaven." At first, humans believed God lived on Earth because everything grew from it. However, humanity now believes that a kingdom inhabits the heavens. The belief that our God inhabited an underground kingdom is thousands of years old, and in fact was believed to be a woman. That is why she was called the Cosmic Mother. Fascinating legend that keeps many similes with other ancient stories in different civilizations, especially with that of the Anunnaki in ancient Sumeria, and bears certain similarities with the Bible, such as the introduction of language as an object of division between the races. So, the big question, do the reptilians continue to rule our world? They do, but their time is short. But this is what people have to realize, and we could just, we could go to one place after another, and, share this with you. I got some links. Carl Sagan wrote a book called The Dragons of Eden, Speculations on the Evolution of Human Intelligence. And we know we have a reptilian portion of our brain. It's a part of evolution. It's just simply a part of evolution. And everything is always evolving. When we look over again to the Anunnaki, it's clear that some of these beings are serpentine reptilian beings as well. And they have the same stories. They talk about technologies. Now, these beings, again, are not as advanced as, say, when we're talking about the Galactic Federation, and they're nothing like the Devas. When we're talking about, beings like Lakshmi and Ganesh and Isis Aset and others up there, Kuan Yin. Those are such high vibrational beings, so far above these beings. And I mean, the evidence is overwhelming. The Chinese kings say that they were descendants of dragon gods. They have legends also of these beings coming and stopping the flow of the Kundalini energy in humans. Because at one time, humans could fly, and they were telepathic. And they could do all sorts of things. Humans were like the gods. When you think of what humans were like, they were almost like what we see when we see beings like Thor depicted. Tremendous abilities, very much kind of reminiscent of when we look to Marvel Comics and X-Men and all that stuff. It's not unlike that when we're up in the higher densities. We can do incredible things, but the legends say that these dragon gods came and altered humanity. So now again, humanity speaking instead of being telepathic. Humanity lost all those abilities that the Kundalini energy gave us. And, again, the kings themselves, the rulers, descended from those dragon gods. By the way, seraphim, dragons in heaven? Yeah. Because, seraphim literally translates to serpent, fiery serpent, poisonous serpent, or the fiery effect from the burning of poison. Interesting, isn't it? Isn't it? Very curious. And then we could jump over to Mexico, and we have the god Quetzalcoatl, Mesoamerican feathered serpent god. Again, all these. Now, not all of them are depicted as bad, again, or outright evil. There's some to be respected, and in many cases, it's a good idea to stay at a distance. We were talking with the guides about the Nagas, and yeah, the Nagas hold great knowledge, but they were very cautious. You don't really want to. You want to, again, it's just like, don't feed the alligator.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't want to feed the alligator. He's going to, keep coming back, and at some point, the alligator is just dangerous. Regardless of whether you think it's your pet or your friend or your buddy, because you've trained it, you've fed it. It comes up to the house all the time. It comes up to the boat all the time. The point in being is, at some point, the alligator could look at you like the next meal.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's interesting. Now, we're just touching on these and not going, into too much detail on some of these. And, there might be people that are offended saying, oh, no, you put them in the same category. No, we're saying some are viewed in a very benevolent light, some, not so benevolent. Here we see the existence of reptilians on Earth confirmed by an ancient Egyptian papyrus. Yeah, basically referred to as kind of like a crocodile god. This is everywhere you look. Everywhere. Every single culture. And I'll give you guys the links. We were talking about the Hindu tradition. And yeah, there are many of these Nagas, like, Vishnu rides on the back of a great Naga. So showing his control or working with the Naga in a symbiotic relationship. Because, again, some are viewed as being very, very wise beings. They do have knowledge. They're not all basically the Draco, so to speak. They're not all like the lower, lower vibration. There are some in the higher realms that are very, very high benevolent beings. But it's all over the place. Native American lore, you name it, every culture talks about it. As we see here, the mysterious Nagas, serpent people who live in secret underground cities. And then we could get into Agartha, we could get into Shambhala, and all these inner earth cultures. There's so many legends of inner earth beings, of which, some are actually kind of Bigfoot-like. Some are very, very humanoid, and some are reptilian.
Mm-hmm. And, these beings, they have a master knowledge of Kundalini too. So their Kundalini energy, they know how it works. They know what it does. So it's very important. The ones that are in control, they keep that energy suppressed in humans. That's what they do.
And people have had encounters with these beings. And the Lacerda interview is something I've done a couple of videos on years ago. A supposed meeting in the southern part of Sweden back in 1999, where this person actually did an interview with a female reptilian being that's not the Draco. And basically she says that, the first species here on the planet was reptilian, and that's why the Draco claimed this is theirs, because the first beings that were on the planet were reptilian, and then humanoid beings were brought in later after the Lyran wars. And there's been this intergalactic battle that's been going on for we don't even know how long. But again, these beings, she portrays, themselves more as being neutral to us, but they don't really like us because they haven't had good um, experiences with humans per se. But they're not like the Draco. But there's a lot of them still living in the earth, and there's a lot of legends too that the beings that were on the surface of the earth have had to go into the earth at times because of these beings that came in and destroyed everything. And I had alluded to that fact before. If you look to Anatolia and Turkey, there's underground caves that could house hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And they were also blocked off from the inside, like they were terrified of somebody discovering them that was up on the surface. And we have all this evidence of even weapons of a NUKE nature being used in the past on the planet in many different locations. The wars that were on the planet were horrible. Think of your worst sci-fi movie with alien invasions, and the Earth has actually seen that in the past.
A lot of stuff like that that's been covered up.
Totally covered up. And why? Well, because the victors are still here. And they're just basically ruling from a distance where we don't get to see them. And there's so much you could look at. I'll give you guys all these different links to go into. Agartha is so interesting. I bring up the book Edidorfa, which I found fascinating. It's from like the 1890s, and it actually is Aphrodite spelled backwards. I think it's John Uri Lloyd that wrote it, and it's again supposedly true. It's a visitation from inner Earth beings that bring him into the inner Earth and show him around. And life is abundant in there, and in many ways, life is way easier inside than it is on the surface. This was really curious too, because if who did I'm trying to remember it. It might have been Atlantean Gardens, Robert Seffert, that first brought this to light for me personally. In South America, South America is really interesting, and I do think that Cindy and I more than likely will end up in South America, maybe in about 9-10 years' time. That'll be where we finish out this existence in this life. There's so many entryways into the inner Earth, and there's a lot of interaction with the inner Earth civilizations. And again, they run the gambit. There's so many different ones in there. Fascinating to see some of these things. German explorers, well, finding people that speak a certain dialect of German that were apparently indigenous to South America and the Amazon forest, that sounds kind of crazy. Yet, there are these legends that the Vikings have, spread much, much farther than what we think. And again, a lot of the beings that we see in diverse places, like when we look to the migrations on the planet, a lot of people were basically escaping a global conflagration, a global cataclysm, and were just survivors, kind of being scattered after the destruction of the global society we would call Atlantis. And then there's been other breakaway civilizations that were way more advanced than what we see even now. That, again, were destroyed by the controllers. This is one of those things to realize. The controllers have systematically destroyed everything that was here before them in order to rebuild it in their image.
Yep, there you go. And that's where that wording comes from. So now you got to look at things in a different light with a different understanding. And this is going to help free yourself. I remember when I was in the certain belief system that a lot of people are in, my brain was chained down. My thoughts were afraid to go here, to go there, until I started seeing these little cracks in their story, cracks in their and everything that was going on. It's like, if this is the way the world is supposed to be, then why are all these horrible things happening around me? Why are these people that I trust, that I'm trusting with my friends, why are my friends getting so sick? It just didn't make any sense until you go deeper.
Right. So here's 10 modern-day sightings of reptilian humanoids. We'll just touch on them briefly. The devil creature of Sandung Cave, and this is the largest cave, thought to be the largest cave in the world, one of the largest. And there's video here, and it does feel like it's something that's interdimensional in nature that you could see over in this area when you play the video. Again, I'll give you guys all the links. Sonoran Desert in Arizona, yeah, there's so much over out that way. In Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, it's just loaded. We always felt reptilians and grays all around us all the time, under our feet, over our heads. You could sense them. And of course, there's all those interesting artifacts. There's a section of the Grand Canyon that's been closed to public forever. That rumors are that they've found statues that are very reminiscent of Buddha in there, as well as Egyptian artifacts in this cave in Arizona, in the Grand Canyon area. What's our real history? It's not what we've been told. And the Scape Ore Lizard Man, I've been through there myself multiple times. This is Bishopville, South Carolina. Something tore up a car, and there was a series of sightings. And, I swear, me, my ex, and the kids saw something in the sky that actually resembled very much a pterodactyl. Now, I don't know if this is a place where the veil is thin, if there's some sort of distortion here, or what. It could be. It could be that it's some sort of energetic vortex. But many sightings of a lizard-like creature that was very violent, actually, scared the crap out of people and actually damaged their vehicles. And the Loveland Frog Man, this is Loveland, Ohio, and a lot of sightings there. That gets me thinking about the feel of where the Mothman was, because that still has a creepy vibe. I remember going, over the bridge there many times into Ohio, the bridge that had collapsed with the Mothman. Honey Island Swamp Monster. This is also known as the Louisiana Wookiee. This swamp monster sightings date back to 1963. Honey Island Swamp is one of the largest areas in the United States that has not been compromised by the modern way of life. In other words, it's just so much of a trouble to get there, be around, and also be safe in, with all the gators and snakes and what out there. And there's legends of this creature out there as well, with detailed sightings. Several wild boars were found that had their throats ripped open. They found claw-like footprints that showed webbed feet. Interesting stuff, isn't it? There's a reptilian photograph in a vehicle, and I have links again for you guys to check these out yourself. The interdimensional aspect of this. How about the men in black actually turning into reptilians before your very eyes? Again, there's something called glamoury. That's a type of magic where it could appear that you're seeing something. Maybe it's, looks to be a beautiful girl, but then in reality it becomes this gross, withered hag with big fangs.
Right?
There's so many myths and legends of things like that as well. Austrian cave reptilians. And this was an expert investigator of cave systems in Austria, the Czech Republic, and Poland. Gregor claimed to witness a reptilian in the old salt mine caves of northern Austria in May 2011. He estimated that it was about 164 feet below the surface, and he was taking cave chippings to be studied. He heard strange voices coming from nearby. He stopped and listened to the sound till the voices appeared to stop. Ignoring them, he moved farther through the cave and into a chamber where he smelled a horrible rotting odor. Suddenly he heard the voices again. A little bit spooked, he decided to turn back and exited the chamber as quickly as he could. As soon as he did, he turned his head to look behind him and saw with horror that the light appeared to be illuminating a previously dark room, and then he got a glimpse of it. Several big, muscular, lizard-like creatures standing upright occupied the previously empty chamber. He stated that each one seemed to be wearing what appeared to be a uniform, and they had tails that swung behind them, and they appeared to be talking to each other in a language that he did not know, but which still sounded similar to human speech. The creatures did not seem to notice Gregor, who, as quickly as he could, made his way out of the caves into the safety of the ground above. Pretty fascinating stuff, is that not? You know, there's been so many people that have had these type of encounters, and here you see Los Angeles judge turns into a reptilian, so says a man. And, you know, personally, would I doubt it? No, not at all, because we can be overshadowed. And then there is also, and this is that article on the Florida man claiming that he spotted a reptilian humanoid inside a vehicle, and he took pictures. So I'll give all this to you guys to check out. Fascinating stuff. You know, that's why these quote unquote myths and legends, you know, when people dismiss them as nothing, you got to recognize and realize that there's more of these encounters, myths, legends than you could count. There, you think it's all just craziness? You think it's all just people, you know, using illegal substances? I don't think so. I mean, obviously, in our case, we know it's not because of our personal experiences. But more and more people are waking up at the same time.
Indeed.
So I hope you guys found this interesting. Share your comments. Please do share your experiences. We do want to thank all our Patreons and everybody that's supporting us on Ko-Fi as well. And everybody that's checked out Medicinal Foods, there's a link on the top of every video. Use coupon code EEA and get 5% off your order. And as you fill up the cart, you get bigger discounts and free shipping as well. As always, guys, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.